Hello everyone, welcome to the pre-match analysis between India and Afghanistan. The big day is finally here. After almost 2 action-packed weeks, the SAFF Championship 2013 reaches its climax today as India meet Afghanistan to decide who will be crowned the champions of South Asia, just as they did 2 years ago in Delhi. To discuss furthermore, here with me are our experts, Shahrukh Sohail, Chief Editor, Football Pakistan, Atishay Agarwal, editor, 90 Minutes, the only football magazine in India, Amoy Ghoshal, football writer, sportskeeda.com. I'll start with Atishay. What did you make out of India's last game against Maldives?
It was a much improved performance from India. I think going into the game, not many were giving India a chance, which is, very rare considering India usually considered the strongest team in South Asia. But, they didn't do well in the group stages. Maldives scored a lot of goals in the group stage, so Maldives were considered favorites by most observers. But India showed a lot of fight in the game. I think that was the big difference from, how we saw India in the group stages. There was a lot more fight, a lot more commitment, and there was a clear tactical plan, on how to go about and how to beat Maldives. And I think India followed that plan to the T, and that showed on the pitch.
And Amoy, what was the tension that followed after the game? You were there to spectate the game. Did you think it was a clear foul that Subrata Paul committed on the striker of Maldives, Ali Ashfaq?
When I first saw it, it was difficult to make it out, and that's how difficult it is for the referee to make a decision instantly. But seeing the replays, I think the referee was right. It was a clear dive by Ashfaq. Even in the first 2 games, again in the group stage, Ali Ashfaq won penalties, but on that occasion, the goalkeeper touched him. In this case, Ashfaq just tried to get contact with Subrata Paul, but he didn't. So it was a clear dive. And about the tension after the game, Maldives really lost it, because before the game, they thought they had already won the match. Because with Ali Ashfaq saying that this is the weakest Indian team, they were overconfident, I think, Maldives, which again played against them. So I think they were pretty pissed off after losing the game, and they just took out their frustration on the match officials.
Right. Is that a... yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have to add that, when Ashfaq goes through on goal, he's got this tendency to, instead of trying to score, he tries to round the keeper and look for the foul and, get the keeper sent off. So I think it's not the kind of thing you want to see from a striker. You want to see a striker try to score when he goes through, right? So yeah, I think it was a dive, and I'm in a way I'm happy that this incident took place, because maybe in the future he won't do the same thing.
Right, that was striker with as much capabilities as Ashfaq does.
Exactly.
I'll come back to the game between Afghanistan and Nepal too. We've discussed about it, but what did you make out of Afghanistan's performance? They should be very high on confidence because they kicked the hosts out of the tournament.
Yes, well, you look at the performance, I think Afghanistan were magnificent. They got the early goal and they just absorbed pressure after that. The defense held up really well. And, after scoring against the host Nepal, who have a very, strong side, and also they have the 12th man, I think Afghanistan did the right thing. They scored early and they just dropped back and defended deep.
Yes, after the group stage, a lot of teams were also underestimating the Indian side, thought that they would not be able to defend the championship, but really they've stood out like champions and made their way into the finals.
Yes, I think that's given India a lot of extra motivation. Ali Ashfaq made comments that this was the weakest India side he's seen. We have the Afghans still underestimating India, if I can say that, because there were comments yesterday that from the Afghan camp that they're physically and technically better than India. So even if that might be true, it's not the kind of statement you want to make before a big final, because it can really come back to haunt you. So I think any such comments will only work in India's favor, because players and the coach will get a lot of extra motivation from it, and that can translate into a better performance on the pitch.
Yes, coming to that winning goal in that game, Arnab Kumar Mondal, the defender, it was his first international goal. What did you make out of this performance?
I think before the goal, it's very important to say that India had 3 days of rest before the semi-final, and it showed in their performance. They were finishing the game very strongly. Physically, they look a fitter side than Maldives, and they frustrated Ali Ashfaq throughout the game. But they were going forward, they were having a little difficulty, Sunil Chhetri not playing. They were not creating enough chances, but they were getting balls into the box, and not getting on the end of it. So it required a set piece. Istevan Urbani, the Maldives coach, had said that India is strong in the air, they're strong from set pieces. And in the end, it proved to be that Arnab Mondal scored his first international goal, and he usually scores on the big stages, For the club, also he scored in the Federation Cup final last year. So it was a great moment for him, and it was a rare moment too, because Arnab Mondal isn't a regular goal scorer. So maybe it was destined that somebody like Arnab Mondal would score and take India to the final. But overall, it was a very disciplined performance for India, and it gave them the foundation, to nick a goal at the other end and get the 1-0 win.
Right, Sunil Chhetri not playing. We'll get back to that, but coming to the Afghanistan lineup, their major striker Bilal Arzu is still been out of form.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, Bilal Azou is Afghanistan's leading man, and so far he's been very disappointing. Not only is his fitness, in question, he's not running after the ball, but his touch has been very poor. So the coach said that Bilal is coming back from injury, but given his caliber, that's not a good enough excuse anymore.
Right. Who do you think is really stepping up from the Afghan side? Their captain, of course, Arun Fakhruddin, has been brilliant. But do you think it's everything relies on Sanjay Ahmedi's responsibility now?
Well, once you look at the group stage, I think Jamur, who did not play in the last game incident, he had been very good on the wing. He's been going up and down, trying to get in crosses. But once you go into the strike partnership, Sanjay Ahmedi has performed for Afghanistan. He scored that crucial goal, and the responsibility to score once again today will be on him unless Bilal Arzu can turn up the screws and give a very good performance.
Right. Going back to the Indian team, who do you think will be replaced once Sunil Chhetri comes back? Is it going to be Robin Singh? And what did he make out of his performance in the last game?
Robin Singh comes under a lot of criticism from the fans and the media, in India. So, but I think he did well. He did really well. There was a huge responsibility on him replacing the captain, replacing India's talisman in such a big semi-final. But I think especially in the second half, he held up the ball really well. His control was much improved, and his size and his physical presence was very important to how India played in that game. Having said that, we can't be sure whether he's going to start it because Sunil Chhetri is coming back into the side. However, I think the other change we might see is that Arata, who suffered a bit of a back injury against Maldives, he's probably not going to make it. Kovermans wasn't sure whether he's going to be fit for today. So, if Arata makes way for Sunil, then we might see India play through two strikers with Robin and Sunil up front. Or we could see Robin being dropped and Jewel Raja being back into the side playing behind Sunil Chhetri.
Right. Omar, you finally got what you desired for Nalappan Mohan Raj being out of the side and Saeed Rahim Nabi replacing him. Yeah. And how did you think he performed, Nabi?
Yeah, thank God Nabi played at left back, because in this current team, it is probably his best position because we don't have a regular left back. And Mohan Raj, although I've been critical of him, he hasn't played for the last 24 months. So it's down to the coaching staff that they keep selecting him. So Nabi had a great game. We didn't see any crosses really from Maldives from that side. Even going forward in set, he played a role in the goal as well. He won the header. So that was very important. But above all, I think the Indian team just came out of the shadow of Sunil Chhetri, in that semi-final. They didn't have their talisman. Instead of dwelling on that, they just performed above themselves with many players taking responsibility and, closing down Ali Ashfaq whenever he was in possession. It was a tactical masterclass by the coach, Wim Kovermans. He tactically outclassed his counterpart. But the players really stepped up in Sunil's absence. And, of course, Nabi had a great game. And hopefully today as well he will start at left back.
There was something visually unpleasant that happened in the game between Nepal and Afghanistan too, when Farzad Ghulam Muhauddin was brought down, suffered a head injury, had to be rushed to the hospital. What's the latest update on the player?
Well, he went to the hospital after that, and thankfully the doctors cleared him, and he did train with the team yesterday, but it's unlikely that he'll start today. You got Ali Ahmed to replace in that game, and I think Ali Ahmed should be given a start today.
Right, and given Muhauddin's performance, how much impact do you think his absence will have in today's game, if he does not play?
I think he's been solid for Afghanistan, but with Harun Fakhruddin in the center back position, I think he can cover well for his defensive partner in the timing when Ali Ahmed is subbing in.
Right, going into a game like this, a finals, right? India have regained form. What do you think the tactics that Kovermans is going to imply in today's game?
In fact, I put the question to Kovermans yesterday at the pre-match press conference that how different do you think this game will be against Afghanistan? And he said that tactically it will be a different game. Afghanistan on a different side. India could, rely on the physical side a bit more against Maldives, but against Afghanistan, that might not be the best tactic because Afghanistan are physically stronger than India if you look at them. So I think India will have to focus on a weakness of Afghanistan, maybe on the right flank probably, where I feel that they have a bit of a weakness at right back, where Mustafa Hadid plays, and I don't think he's really that strong defensively. I think that's somewhere India could exploit a weakness of Afghanistan and try to score from there.
Right. Coming back to the acting captain of last match, Gauramangir Singh, what did you make out of his performance at the back?
I think it was one of his best performances for India. I think he took the responsibility. His positioning was good. He even bailed out Arnab Mandal a couple of times when he got beat by Ashfaq. It was a good performance by Mangi, and he's a very experienced player now. He has been there in the international scene for the last 5-6 years, and he showed in his performance. You will see that he commits very few fouls. His positioning is quite good. It's just that when he gets caught out in one-on-one situations, when he looks a bit slow. But overall, Gauramangir is a very important player for India, even though he hasn't been at the best of forms for his club side. At international level, his experience of playing, he has nearly 70 caps now at international level. That's massive for the South Asian region. And that experience showed in the game against Maldives.
Right. Do you think India resorted to a slightly more aggressive game in the last match, because there were a lot of yellow cards produced in the game, even from the Maldives side, but what did you make out of India's performance in that context?
I think it was tactically spot on. If you have a player like Ali Ashfaq in the opposing team, you have to be aggressive. And I think India did the right thing. Some of the yellow cards I feel were a bit harsh. The referee was too keen on showing the yellow cards. But India were tactically spot on. One player doesn't have to follow Ali Ashfaq. You can do it in packs. As I said, you have to hunt him in packs. That's what India did. They also stopped Arif from playing. And it's actually Maldives, it showed Maldives' weakness. They depend heavily on Arif and Ali Ashfaq, whereas we have been speaking, India depend heavily on Sunil Chhetri. Maldives depended heavily on these two players, and when these two players were stopped, they looked a very ordinary side.
Right, and given that they did reach the finals, do you think he'll play today's game, Sunil Chhetri?
Well, Kovermans at the press conference joked also that I didn't want Sunil to play. So obviously he's going to make it back into the starting 11. He's going to captain the side. We can joke that India played better without Sunil. We can say that, but obviously he's got a lot of quality. It was a big match. That one bit of quality, that one half chance he could convert into a goal could be the difference.
And what would be Afghanistan tactics going into a final with India? They know this side, the Indian side. They played them in the SAFF Championship 2011 finals too, where after they lost their goalkeeper to a red card, they absolutely lost their temper and were defeated 4-0.
No, that's an interesting thing that you've mentioned now. Mansoor Fakir was the current goalkeeper for Afghanistan. He gave a very cheap penalty against Nepal, just ran with the ball and hit the other Nepali player. So he has to be really careful. He's a very good goalkeeper, as you saw. He saved 2 penalties, which is a very miraculous thing considering it's a semi-final. So he'll have to be very careful. He doesn't give any cheap fouls or penalties or anything like that. And tactically, I think Afghanistan will have the same approach that they have against Nepal. Try to get an early goal and then settle on to the game. But they can use their physicality to a good advantage, and perhaps look to bombard the box on set pieces.
Right. Looking at this Afghanistan team so far, which part of the game do you think they're absolutely sound in? Is it the defense or the midfield?
I think it's the defense. Afghanistan defense has held out very well this time around. Their midfield has been questionable, and the striking has been very woeful this time. They've only managed to score a couple of goals against weakest sides such as Bhutan and Sri Lanka, and they struggled after scoring that goal against Nepal. So they have to improve their striking and definitely create more chances as well.
Right. They must be pretty confident, the Indian lineup. But what do you think is one aspect of the game that they really need to work on?
I think they have to score more goals. India have just scored 4 goals in this competition, which is a very low number for a team like India. And even against Maldives, although they played very well and limited them to half chances, India didn't create much themselves. They had a goal disallowed for offside, they hit the side netting, but otherwise they didn't test the Maldives goalkeeper that much. So definitely they have to create more chances today, because it won't be easy keeping a clean sheet against Afghanistan. They have a lot of quality going forward. So definitely India's finishing and the more quality in the final third will be very important. And also they may not be able to use the set pieces that well today, because Afghanistan have the advantage in the air. So from open play, India have to show more bite in attack.
Right. Coming back to this game between India and Afghanistan, this is going to be huge. Do you think this is a good time for Afghan to rise when it comes to football context and finally be the SAFF champion?
Of course, I think it's a big moment for Afghanistan. They had the chance 2 years back as well, and to be in the final again, just in the next edition itself is I think it's really big for the country. The country that has gone through troubled times. So a victory in the SAFF Championship would mean a lot to fans back back in Afghanistan. We've seen that on social media as well. We've seen comments from Afghanistan on YouTube or Twitter or even Facebook, and they've really been following the tournament much more than anyone would expect. So they're really looking forward to this final. If Afghanistan win, it could be provide a huge boost to the fans back home.
Right. Now the question is, who do you think really has to step up in today's game and make sure the Afghans clinch their first ever SAFF title?
Once you look at it, I think Sanjar Ahmedi has been in better form than Bilal Azu, but you never know. Bilal Azu is a very good player, and he can step up in a final like this. So I think both of the strike partners will be crucially important today, and hopefully if they score, Afghanistan can go on to win.
Akshay, why don't you give me players from both sides that you think will really have to step up and we'll have to keep an eye out for?
I think the key battle today is going to be between the two skippers, Harun Fakhruddin from Afghanistan and Sunil Chhetri from India. Fakhruddin is centre back for Afghanistan, Chhetri plays as a striker, so that's going to be a very big battle for me that could decide the outcome of this game. Also, Sunil will want to prove a point that this Indian side is better with him in the starting 11, because he missed the game against Maldives, and India, a lot of people said India played better without him. So he'd want to prove a point, come back into the final and give a huge performance for the Indian side. So that would be the battle that decides this game.
Right. Amoy, who do you think has to step up from the Indian team and really perform and make sure India clinches the SAFF championship 3 times in a row?
I think it has to be Sunil, because more than the fact that he missed the semi-final, he has had a lot of rest now between the last group stage game and the final. And he has plenty to prove. He's 29 now. It may be his last chance to win the SAFF championship. You never know, because with injuries, when you get to the age of 30, with injuries, it becomes difficult to play international tournaments. So I definitely think Sunil will step up today. I don't know whether he will score, but I expect an improved display for him. And if India want to win, he will have to take his chances.
Shahrukh, we're into the last segment of the show where we have been improving. What do you think is the scoreline of today's match?
I think considering how Afghanistan have been playing and how India have been playing, so definitely going to be a very narrow game. But I think Afghanistan will edge it 1-0 and go on to win the SAFF Championship 2013.
Right. What do you think, Adisha? Do you have an Indian flag that you're going to take out and wear today?
I could, but I think, again, like Shahrukh said, it's going to be a very tight game, but Afghanistan will probably have that. They also have an extra day's rest, let's not forget that. So I think they're going to have just that little bit extra about them to reverse the result from 2 years back. I think it's going to be 1-0 to Afghanistan.
What do you think, Amoy? Are you going to agree with the other 2 experts and say that Afghanistan will clinch their first ever SAFF title?
Well, my heart really wants India to win. It will be a hat-trick of titles. But at the same time, I think we will be in for a long night today. It could go to extra time and even penalties. And Afghanistan's additional day of rest, I think, could be a big factor today. And I just feel this is Afghanistan's golden generation, and today they will reach the pinnacle, I think, by winning the SAFF championship. So Afghanistan to win on penalties.
Yes, thank you so much, experts. It was a pleasure being with you. We're at the end of the SAFF championship. Will the Lions of Khorasan finally clinch their first title? Only time will tell, because you never know a game of football, do you? Thank you so much for tuning in. We have live action at the other side of this break.